Good morning, everybody. I think we can see people out there. I'm not quite sure. Nancy can't see. We don't see anybody out there, so we hope that you are listening. Welcome to the Finance and Audit Committee meeting for the High Speed Rail Authority Board for February the 18th. If the Secretary will record that we've got a full composition of committee members here, and we'll start this morning. We never do this pledge. We don't generally do the Pledge of Allegiance here. Generally, we've been in rooms where they didn't have flags, and because we're going to do it again in an hour, we'll go ahead with our meeting today without doing that. We'll start today's meeting off with public comment. We have two. One of them is Patricia Preston, please. Good morning. Is your microphone on there? If up in the front, just there you go.
There we go. Yes, you know, I come as a concerned taxpayer. In 2008, you know, the state taxpayers approved funding for the high-speed rail program. And that approval came with strong support from Los Angeles, Orange County, and San Francisco Chamber of Commerce. And I believe that that their approval was based upon the thought that high-speed rail made good business sense. And one of the issues that we're seeing right now with high-speed rail is that we have a problem with our budgets. We seem to be over budget on just about everything that we do with this program, that we're behind schedule, you know, significantly so, that the federal government, which has funded, they've been a funding partner for this program, has issued clawbacks. As of May 2019, we had $928 million pulled back from this program. And where does that money come from? Well, it's going to come out of our, you know, our other programs, our other transportation programs. It'll come from programs that fund, you know, our healthcare programs, public education. It'll come out of the general fund. Additionally, it looks like if we miss our next deadline, that there's another $2.5 billion that may be clawed back from this program, which is some total of $3.72 billion. And I think that, you know, when we talk about, you know, public funding and money that comes from the taxpayers, you know, that in good faith and, you know, and to, you know, uphold the public trust, we need to hold these programs and the people who manage them and who are providing oversight, we need to hold them accountable. $3.72 billion, what does that amount to? You know, that's almost the entire federal funding for a fiscal year for transportation for the entire state of California. So I'm hoping that, you know, I know Elaine Howell issued an audit report, and I'm hoping that we're moving forward on her suggestions as far as acquiring right-of-way. And I'm hoping that we're seeing structural changes within the management team and on this board for the overall management of this project to make sure that we don't lose that $2.5 billion. And also that we adhere to the public trust that's bestowed upon the individuals involved in this process, because you are serving the state taxpayers of California.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Preston. Your comments are noted, and as you probably know, we listen to your comments, but we don't respond to them at this point. But so thank you very much for coming here. We appreciate them very much. Next, David Schwagel, please.
Greetings, F&A Committee. David Schwagel at Pick Civil Engineering. Wishing you a happy National Engineers Week and happy 10-year anniversary on the Vancouver, BC Winter Olympics, the most innovative transportation exercise in all of Canada's history to get a city with severe traffic congestion, significant topographical challenges, as well as no freeways ready for the Olympics. That is an ever-present reminder that we here in the NorCal and SoCal mega regions, as we get ready for Olympics, we need to innovate. With regard to innovation, per the Cascadia mega region, we learned that innovation corridors are a way to attract private investment. With that in mind, we're going to want to keep an eye on our friends from ACE as they seek to significantly improve passenger rail service between Stockton and San Jose, as well as Merced to Sacramento. Dovetails perfectly to what the Greater Sacramento Economic Council is doing with regard to encouraging tech firms in the Silicon Valley to expand their runways into the Inland Valley. We also need to make sure that we perform. If we can hold people's feet to the fire to deliver CP23 this year, that will help all of us sleep a lot better at night, and that will significantly improve our relationships with the federal government. Also, when it comes to acquisition of right-of-way, per a PBS program, it emphasized the importance of working with the individual ag communities on significantly enhancing the technology appeal of their agricultural operations, as well as working on renewable power generation so that they can generate power, sell the power to the authority to power the train. We need to focus on the recommendation from the Brookings Institution report on the Sacramento economy that applies all the way down to Fresno, in that the intersection of food, agriculture, and technology is a sweet spot for economic prosperity. Let's, when we acquire the right-of-way, make sure that we are diligently working with these ag communities in bringing ag tech so that those Silicon Valley firms will be willing to invest. Finally, friendly reminder, driving the economy forward with infrastructure, Friday, April 3rd, 2020, Hilton Garden West, here in Sacramento. See you there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schwegel. That concludes the public comment portion of today's meeting. We'll now move on to the agenda items. Item number 1 is the approval of the December 10th Finance and Audit. So moved. By second. Thank you, Nancy. It's motion and second for the approval of the minutes for December 10th, 2020. Oh, excuse me, 19. All in favor? Aye. All right, thank you. Item number 2, the committee chairman's report. But we'll start out initially with our external audit update. Paula? Good morning.
I wanted to give you an update on a couple of external audits. The first one is from the U.S. Department of Transportation, Office of Inspector General. They completed their audit of the Federal Railroad Administration. This was an audit to look at FRA's risk mitigation and oversight of expenditures. They focused their work on a case study of the cooperative agreement with the authority. That's how we're involved. They issued the report January 22nd, and they identified 4 recommendations for FRA to improve their risk management and compliance oversight. The recommendations directed the FRA to revise and implement policies, procedures, guidance, and to define a framework for an interim use plan and to develop procedures for evaluating those interim use plans. Several of the conclusions that the OIG team reached about FRA's oversight matched those of the authority. As our CEO, Brian Kelly, wrote in his response to the OIG, the FRA and authority must establish a functional oversight relationship for the project to be successful. The other audit that I wanted to update you on is the state auditor's report. We had a 1-year status in November, and the state auditor has released the assessment of our responses to the recommendation. And 16 of the 17 recommendations are fully implemented or partially implemented. We have 1 recommendation that is pending, and it's pending re-engagement of the FRA. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Rivera. Any questions for Nancy?
Thank you.
Thank you. Just with regards to just a general comment, I've talked with Mr. Hedges, and what we have asked, and he's going to provide for us in the April meeting. As some may know, he is in the process of reforecasting the budgets. What we're asking him to present to the Finance and Audit Committee in April will be the results of that reforecast, as well as his schedule on implementation and completion, implementation of the reforecast budgets, as well as the implementation and completion of construction on those items required under our federal grant by December 31st of 2022, as well as his forecasts on schedule with regards to completion of the 119 miles specifically. With that, that'll be in April for those of you who are interested in making sure you're here then. Other than that, I have no other comments. Ms. Miller? No. Okay, thank you. Moving on to item number 3, Mr. Annis. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members.
If I can just start out by thanking you, Brian, again. I see further refinements in the package. They are very much appreciated. They're far more readable. I've lost any hope of any authorship responsibility for the mess that we had before, but we appreciate the manner in which you've got this put together, and I know that Joe Hedges has been very helpful on this also. So thank you both very much for this, and I'm sure the public appreciates it also.
Great, thank you. Well, I'm going to be briefing off the executive summary for the financial reports, which is tab 3 in your binders. This starts with the accounts payable, aging, and disputes report. And again, had another good month. The authority has not had an aged invoice in 28 months and has not made a penalty payment in 35 months. Total disputes are $2.1 million, which is similar to what we've had the last few months. Moving down on that same slide, cash management report. The Prop 1A balance of cash as of December 2019 was $585 million. The cap and trade balance was $2.2 billion. That through December does not include the November cap and trade auction, which was brought in approximately $185 million to the authority. When that's included, those two accounts sum to about $3 billion of cash in the bank to support us over the next 18 months or so. There is a February cap and trade auction tomorrow. We should get the results next week, and I'll report those to the FNA when they come in next week.
Brian, if I can interrupt just for a moment, going back up to the value of invoices paid for the December 19 period, that number, does that include TIAs in that? The 218.1?
218. I'll ask my team here if they come up and whisper in my ear here as we go on. I should be able to answer that by the end of the session if we can put a pin in it for now.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, the confirmation that we did have CP23 time impact in that amount.
Okay. We were all getting pretty excited. So, okay.
Let's see. The next slide is the administrative budget with about 50% of the fiscal year completed through December. Our expenditures were running at 33%, or a third of the total fiscal year budget. We've spent about $18.7 million through December. In terms of filling vacancies, as of December 31st, we had 201 positions filled out of 271 positions authorized. That's about a 25.8% vacancy rate. The Human Resource Office did give me an update through this past Friday, and the last 6 weeks have been very good in terms of filling positions. They're reporting as of last Friday, we actually had 220 positions filled, so an additional 19 filled beyond the December 31st data. and that actually brings our vacancy rate down to about 19%, which is getting close to what it was in June of 2019 before the budget added 45 positions to the state. So the human resource teams, all the offices within the authority are making good progress in filling positions.
Brian, we're working toward the filling the position for risk manager.
Yes, that is one of the positions that is still open, and also note the Southern California director is another critical position that I know there's a lot of work going on to fill both of those. The governor did, since the FNA last met, did fill 2 governor's appointment positions. The Deputy Director of Legislation was filled by Jane Brown, and the right-of-way manager position was filled by Jennifer Lewis. And
The
again,
reason I mentioned that is we've got a lot of decisions to make going forward, and many of those decisions have a fair amount of risk towards high-speed rail. So if we don't, to have, I'm sorry, we should look very hard at that position because of a lot of the decisions that the board has to make relative to risk. And this is, perhaps I'm jumping ahead of myself, but from a PMG report, they talk about risk, and I think that we need to have someone that can be responsive to answering some of those questions. Thank you.
So I just think that the question would be, is there a way to put additional emphasis on trying to get that position filled? Is that a possibility in the state process? Or is there as much pressure already been placed on it? We've been without a risk manager for at least, I think, 2 years.
Yeah.
Is that right, John? You see him back there. There's no question that we're very concerned about it. I'm sure you are also, but I don't know if there's any pressure that can be brought to bear. Is it part of the challenge just finding people who have got the appropriate experience to do it? Is.
I believe that is it. That we have been in the recruitment mode for a while, but haven't been successful in finding a person of the qualifications we're looking for.
And that's going both within the state government candidates as well as into the private sector.
Yes.
Well, I think we all share the same concern that Ernie has raised, and I'm sure that management does also.
Yes.
Thank you.
I've moved on to slide 4, the capital outlay budget summary. At 50% of the fiscal year completed, year-to-date capital outlay expenditures are at $719.9 million. That's 31.9% of the fiscal year budget. As we are halfway through the fiscal year, we also update our forecast of expenditures for the rest of the fiscal year. The authority's fiscal year forecast has been updated now to about $1.6 billion. That's down from the 2.25 that is the budgeted amount. We do continue to reflect the budget amount in the summary tables. The table at the bottom of this slide is new. The FNA committee asked at the December meeting that we add some additional information to get at what parts of the capital budget are lagging and relative to each other, relative to budget. There's 3 main categories here: construction, project development, and bookend projects that are the bold lines in the bottom chart. See, overall construction is has through December spent 38% of budget, and again that would be relative to 50% if it was proportional for the fiscal year. Project development has spent 14%, and the bookend projects, that's Caltrain, Rosecrans, Marquardt, grade separation in the south, that has spent 11% through December of the fiscal year budget.
Brian, I just want to call your attention to on the first chart above on the executive summary, your third bullet point, I think you're off about $100,000 on the monthly expenditures. You show it at being 55.7 million. I think it's actually 55.8. I may be wrong. I don't want to calculate, but I just looked at the number and it seems like you're about $100,000 off.
Okay, could be a rounding error, but we'll
And then
take a
so you
look
have,
at that.
and you're on the design build contracts, on monthly expenditures, you have the same number, but
All right, thank you.
just thought I'd note it.
Sure.
And Brian, also thank you for the response to our request on that schedule that you just went over. In I assume the dropping from the 2.22 or the 2.255 to 1.6 is going to be reflected in the reforecast that Joe's working on. Is that all part of this?
Correct, yeah, that will affect the out years as well, what we expect to spend in 2021 and
Yeah.
21-22.
Okay, and so in next month's report then, will this schedule be revised to reflect the budget at 1.6 versus the 2.25?
Well, we could, I believe we could fit perhaps an extra column in that would show the forecast amount. Thought it might be helpful to retain the budget amount.
Well, I like that very much, rather because we lose what the intent was at the beginning, and we all of a sudden we start thinking the budget is 1.6, but we recognize that it was 2.255. So if we could see what the detail is, so we can see what the basis is for reducing the budget from the 2.255 would be helpful next month.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Right. We'll move on to the next slide. Total expenditures with forecast through December. The multi-year expenditure on the project is $6.4 billion, and this chart shows how that splits across 4 categories: construction, project development, administration, and local assistance. The bottom half of the slide shows the state match to ARA, and the federal government through I believe November of 2018 had approved $477 million of ARA match. They discontinued their engagement on this issue. We've since submitted another $832 million of match invoices for approval. The FRA has not acted on those. The slide at the bottom, second bullet from the bottom, also provides the pipeline, if you will. That we have $658 million in progress at high-speed rail. Of that, $214 million is being processed at in the authority's accounting unit, and that's the first step before it moves to our grant units for submittal to the FRA. $273 million is pending FRA coordination. These are things where we need an amendment to our task levels before we submit them, and with the disengagement, we're not able to forward those at this time. And lastly, there's $171 million in invoices that we expect to be able to submit within 90 days. And they're being processed now by the grants unit.
But there's still been no no ramped up response or action with FRA on any of this at this point?
Correct.
But if FRA was to approve all that is in process and coming to them, we will have achieved about 1.96 billion.
That's correct. So including those in the pipeline, we feel we're about 80% of the match achieved. So this particular metric of FRA is, I believe, could be characterized in good shape. You know, probably over the next year or so, we'll be able to achieve the ARA match.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Okay. This next slide is contracts and expenditures report. The number of active contracts right now is 190 contracts with $7.3 billion in value. The small business rate is 21.2%, and this has remained relatively constant from the prior month, which was the same percentage.
Is there, that this also is some concern because it's been flat for really quite a long time. And we've been, waiting for construction to ramp up. It seems to be ramping up. So are we putting the appropriate emphasis on our contractors to make sure that they're moved towards compliance on our aspirational goal of 30%?
Well, we are. We have, of course, the contract requirements, and while the recent, I think in my time here, it's...
Joe wants to help on this also.
The answer is yes, sir. We track this on a monthly basis. Is that one of the big advancements of the authority has been the Small Business Council. With regards to each of the non-performing CPs, they have a corrective action plan in place, and they're all starting to ramp up as to achieve that 30%. They're coming back on step as we speak. And this is, like you said, is very important as construction increases that these goals come and start converging. I have the ability to show you with regards to a key performance index that we track every month. If you want to see them, sir, I'll send them to you.
Why don't we just add that to the April agenda that we talked about, and I mentioned it at the outset of this meeting. If you could also take a few minutes to go over that with us in the April meeting, so we have a better sense.
Absolutely, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, one note, Joe, before you leave, could we also have in that report the process in which you use to process in those small businesses, and if in fact they outgrow their size standard, how do we monitor that so that we can get some new contractors in? I think there's been some, we've had a static flow of contractors, been the same contractors, and if in fact they're doing this work, they should be outgrowing some of those size standards, and I'm just not sure that we have, or that we're monitoring that process, and if you could have somebody speak to that would be very helpful.
Yes, sir. I don't know if we have that transparency down at that level, but there is substantial money flowing into predominantly the small businesses into the Central Valley. So we'll look. I'll see what we can get, and I'll work with Pam and to see if we can get our small business.
Or perhaps you can have Pam come here to.
Yes, sir.
One of these. Thank you.
I'll try to update, see what
Thank
we
you.
can do.
Yeah, I would assume that it could be incorporated in the contracts with any small businesses to provide timely updates as to their qualifications to remain as a small business, and put that into the contract to be provided to the authority on a periodic basis.
Understood, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
This last slide is the contingency summary. The baseline adopted by the board in May of 2019 established a full contingency of $3.6 billion. Since then, a total of almost $900 million of that contingency has been directed to the program, leaving about $2.7 billion of contingency that's not yet allocated. We report to the F&A monthly on any use of contingency that exceeds $25 million. There's 2 of those to report for this month. $26 million was allocated to a project construction manager for CP4 HNTB. That is about a 20-month extension of funding that ties to the time impact agreement with the design builder in that same segment. We have also allocated $94 million of right-of-way contingency to the right-of-way budgets. That's across all 3 of the CPs. That concludes what's written in the agenda. I wanted to also mention the governor's budget that was released in on January 10th. There's a couple issues there that I think will affect us as we head into the next fiscal year. Working with the Department of Finance in the state operations area, we've established some sub-programs for more tracking and transparency. And so what we're reporting come July 1, and that fiscal year that begins July 1, is 3 sub-programs. We have a construction management sub-program, we have a project development sub-program, and we have a general administration sub-program. And the budget indicates how much of our state operations budget is allocated to each of those 3. And that's done in part because of the requirements of Prop 1A that sets certain limits on how much bond funds can be directed to different activities. So it does limit our general administration use of Prop 1A. There's a 2.5% amount which can be raised to 5%. We're currently under the 2.5% by quite a bit. We think that'll go another about 3 fiscal years before we hit the 2.5% cap for general administration. So those will be amended into the F&A reporting documents certainly by the July of 2020 reporting when we begin the new fiscal year, but we'll also be updating some of the historical information to conform to that same accounting. And I just wanted to mention as a technical matter, for those that look at the governor's budget for the capital outlay, there is a different accounting system that we use than we use here at F&A. The F&A, we're typically focused on cash expenditures and the forecast of cash expenditures. The governor's budget uses a encumbrance type system. So once dollars are encumbered toward a contract, they're shown as expended, even if that expenditure may liquidate over 2 or 3 years. That concludes the financial reporting. Thank you.
Nancy or Ernie, any questions for Brian? No. Brian, thank you. Very good report. Move on now to the report by Mr. Hedges on the Central Valley update. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Joe.
Sir, to fully acknowledge the task that you gave us, basically, as in to come in and to brief with regards to the rebaseline projecting out for the next year where we stand, and then also to quantify where we are with regards to the finances with regards to our cost rescue type evaluation. So we'll set that up and be in communication.
As well as construction schedule?
Yes, sir. It all links together. Yes,
Fine.
sir.
Okay. And that will be for April?
Yes, sir. This data is for the month of December. That's very significant, since the month of December predominantly was a 2-week work month for construction, with the holidays of Christmas and New Year's falling midweek. So about 2 weeks of field construction associated with this report. Okay. The total project CP 1 through 4, they took and expensed about $44 million to the 43 projection. As you can see in the overall report, CP1 was short predominantly as the result of first order work associated with the AT&T and cutovers, which is ongoing, and UP, PG&E first order work. Those things, the issues have been resolved, and good news is that for the last 3 weeks, we have submitted to PG&E, which is what we call the critical. There's 2 types of land conveyances. There's approximately 930 land conveyances that are required before the start of the first order work. These are the critical ones. These are the ones that we are tracking. So with regards to those critical, we have submitted to PG&E for the last 3 consecutive weeks, a total of 20 and then 2 30s. So those land conveyances for the first time are starting to move. Okay? And we're starting to see We're going to work through some details as in to be able to start the recording of those land commands. So it's all a good news story there. Also, to this report, cumulative total, there was approximately 18 mods issued through CP 1 through 4. The total of those mods was a cumulative sum of approximately $27.5 million. The majority of that money was in CP4 with the intrusion barrier protection system. I'll show you the significance of that, why that is important. Okay. Now, good news, as I said, is that CP2, 3 is coming up strong. This month, kind of looking ahead a little bit, we've had opened 3 more additional sites. So the guideway, the sites are starting to open. So very good news. CP4 is basically pretty much in full production, and especially hopefully this month, we'll be able to present to Semi-Tropics Board Irrigation District with that basically agreement in principle will allow us to go to escrow immediately, and that will reduce the number of required parcels by CP4 by a factor of 2, opening up almost all of the key critical sites required for that first order work to start. So it's been a very good month with regards to coming back after Christmas. Significant gains with regards to these third parties. Right-of-way. What you'll see the right-of-way projections is I owe you some clarification in that right-of-way, just kind of in this summary. I'll get to that sheet in a minute, but I want to caveat that I'm going to have to republish some additional data before I get to that sheet. The big overall arching news for right-of-way is this, is that in the first time in the authority that we've been able to consolidate all of the dispersed right-of-way tracking into a single tracker, which was the software that has been basically laying dormant for years, able to activate, renovate, rejuvenate that, which is GOMs. Now we have one single source of data for all right-of-way, which is a significant step in the right direction, as in to be able to track each and every step of acquisition all the way through land grants, which is done every week now. So it's a very, very positive step in the retooling, revamping of the right-of-way group. Very excited by that. Now, moving on to page 4. Page 4 shows you with regards to the projections that we are currently on track with that $43 million that was expensed. And what's important and significant about that 43, that you've seen as reported in the draft business plan, that over a period of quarters, that this number has nearly doubled and is on the projection again to take significant increases as we move into the summer, as sites open. That's what we're working with each and individual contractor with regards to, as sites open, as in being able to establish and get to work. Priority right now is with moving that first order work. Okay, but it's important to understand the significance of this slide, right? This is the challenge that everyone is acutely aware of, and that is the fulfillment, that $4 billion right there, right? It basically reflects the fulfillment of the CPs to achieve ARA with regards to the scope currently under contract. Okay, and that's what we need to be paying attention to as we chase this curve up to make sure that our production occurs according to the significant gradient changes of expenditure. Page 5. The significance of page 5 is this, is that if you look at that approximately $6 billion, that upper reach, that is what I project to be the total sum that has to be executed as to fulfill ARA. Okay? Now, the difference between the 4 and the 6 is in 2 increments. The first increment is approximately $1 billion of what I call known, unknown scope. Known as I know what it is, i.e. the North Extension, which was just negotiated with regards to CP1 this month. We have basically an agreement in principle that will allow us to get that under contract and to start its execution, okay? Right? And then the other $1 billion from 5 to 6, right, is associated to the tracking systems, right? This is the money that it's going to take, right, to come in and to put in that simple track, those simple systems as in to fulfill ARA. So this slide, again, is significant. This shows you the final reach that we must achieve ARA, okay? Next slide. Again, as I already reported, this reflects what I take to be very good in the sense of a very short month, that we had basically we overachieved our projection and a step in the right direction, basically 44 to our 43 projection. Next slide. This slide is basically going to be one of the key focuses of that April reprojection, okay? This is what drives. This is the key leading indicator as into going to work. Breaking free the total number of guideway and these sites. Now, please remember that these projections were based off of over a year ago with just trying to guess and look into the future. We have a much better picture now because all of our right-of-way with regards to its delivery is now linked into the schedules that we are executing. Right? So I'll be able to provide a better, more precise forecast into the future and how we're closing. Now also too, with regards to the ability to start conveying land grants, these land rights, you're going to see these sites, the bridge sites, right, jump incrementally. Because in many sites, it is a simple land grant, a land rights deed transfer is holding up that site. So as we've prioritized them, we're conveying those, recording those, allowing them to start the work and to free up with regards to those sites, those utilities. Very significant. Now, moving on to slide 8. Slide 8 basically is a summary of of where we're at. I'm not going to go into the minutia of going through each and every one of these, but this provides a general overall summary to the FNA. I'm more than happy to answer any specific questions to any of them. Now, again, the focus right now is CP1. Get CP1 performing, right, and then it's going to be an incremental jump, and that's what we're working on. Meeting with the senior executives of Tudor Perini this week as in to further discuss this. Now, what's good to understand is that Tudor Perini is mobilizing or is at work at every site that they can work at right now. They are being cooperative, and you can say that basically with each and every of the CP contractors. You saw some of their quotes, right? That we have turned the corner, right? We have cooperation. Everyone is basically pushing towards the completion of ARA. Slide 9. Slide 9. This is, as I articulated before, I owe you some explanation with regards to these numbers. These numbers, right, are a jump, significant jump with regards to last month, okay? I want to provide the committee back with some detailed explanation as into what jumped, why it jumped, and why we are settling now onto these numbers. Also, too, what you'll be able to see from the upcoming months is our projected to actual with regards to right-of-way delivery, right? You'll be able to see what row we are delivering in what month. Now, it's important to understand that, especially with regards to the right-of-way curve, is that delivering those number of parcels for that month, right, is critical, because that's all on critical path, okay? So what we're going to show you in the future is if we deliver, let's say, a September parcel in March, we'll show you what parcel we delivered in what month. So you can see the cumulative curve building up, and you'll be able to look and to see in either the month we're in or the past month where there is a shortfall. That shortfall is an indication of impact, which is very significant to understand. And those are the things that we are focused on. You know, I have a saying, move heaven and earth as to eliminate those impacts, because those are state impacts. Okay? And that's the detail that we have currently in right-of-way. Okay? Questions?
So we're going to have this when, Joe?
Sir, I hope to have it. I'll have an explanation to you by the next couple of days. I want to run it through Brian. I'll make sure that it's coordinated, and then two is be able. I do not think that we will have the individual delivery of each parcel down to those lower curves and probably till next month. But this is what's critical. This is what we've been working on, is this finite detail to know what parcel is, as we used to refer to as critical parcel or red parcel. I track basically is three types of parcels that are extremely important to us. Red parcel on critical path, a pink parcel, a parcel that is near to critical path, okay, and parcels that I call black parcels. A black parcel is a significant parcel with regards to the execution of the schedule. If we do not achieve that parcel, it has significant impact, right, to being able to achieve ARA. Those are the things, three types of parcels that on a weekly basis that I track and ask questions about.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Hi. I just want to amplify something Joe said. On this, the right-of-way team under Joe's leadership has moved, as he mentioned, to a technology or a tool called GeoAmps, which is a tracking improvement tool on the right-of-way process. And in utilizing that tool, there are some numbers that are reflected here that we need to crosswalk. And that's why he's saying we're going to come back to you with some clarification, because I need to crosswalk. For example, there are some where I see in past reportings, 61 actions we've taken that I don't see reflected here. So we need to work through what did we lose in the data transfer that we need to clarify with you all. And that's what we're going to get back to you on this week.
Okay. Thank you, Brian.
Can
Nancy?
Can you just explain the railroad parcels? They're not included in this table, but
They're not. It goes to the definition
Of right-of-way.
of acquisition now, and to me, an acquisition. When I redefine kind of the rules of baseball, as I say, okay, the right-of-way parcels are not acquired. We do not buy them.
no, I understand how you did that, which is because they're not part of right-of-way, or they're not included in this table, but it looks like you're going to include them through, some of those have to be critical path too, would be my guess.
They are.
Maybe, yeah. So is there a place where there's a complete picture of that acquisition or agreement acquisition?
We can track. I can give you another third histograph here that shows you basically those parcels, right, with the establishment of those contracts, when it needs to happen, and how we are executing to that line.
Right. I'm just curious as to whether or not those are any more difficult than your right-of-way. My experience has been they can be. I don't know in terms of time.
They were difficult with regards to the establishment of the agreements with the railroads. We are starting right now with the resetting of those relationships. We're starting to see those parcels and the land rights associated with those parcels moving through the system as we speak.
All right. Thank you.
There was a little bit of difficulty this month, to be truthful with you, but I think we've overcome that difficulty. Slide 10, third-party agreements. As you can see, We achieved a significant third-party agreement, and that is with Lakeside. We are tracking to completion of a series of agreements with regards to in January, and we'll report out on those. Most of those were achieved in January. Also, the same thing you see on page 11. Predominantly, most of the third-party agreements should be wrapped up within this month, and that's what we're tracking to. Okay, so it is moving. We're now down into most of these agreements is into the establishment of templates and those types of things that actually is the documentation that you use with regards to the land rights transference. Environmental clearances, as you can see, everything is pushing through. All of the major permits amendments have been worked through with CDFW and have been deemed substantially complete and are advancing forward. There does not seem to be any issues with regards to environmental permits, and as the weather starts turning, we are back out doing our incidental trapping as in to prove our compliance with regards to protected and endangered species. Now, I'm happy to go through any of the CP packages that you would like to go through, but traditionally I have not gone down that level. So,
Any changes in those packages that are materially different from last month that you want to highlight for us?
no, sir. I think that what you're starting to see is right now is this. The good news is this, is in that what I'm really focused on right now is that $1 billion that we need to get under contract with regards to the execution of ARA. That's happening as we speak right now. All of that is underway. The process that we traditionally have used as in to minimize risk both to the contractor and to the state is to award a change order as in for the design, use the design process as in to codify that scope to make sure that we have a commonality of scope and understand that work, and then with that design, then go and negotiate the construction. All that is for each and every known impact that is underway and is currently being designed or being negotiated. Now, other good news is with regards to CP4, we have agreements in principle with the execution of SR 46. And we've been able to, SR 46 is not critical with regards to the achievement of ARA, so we've been able to break that and not be able to include it in, as I've indicated before, what you will see in these rebaseline schedules is a focus on ARA as in to put in the guideway, get the guideway in. We might be working, right, on structures that are not required to achieve ARA post the ARA. Okay, so those would be bridge over structures, those types of things that would transfer traffic, what we call type 2 structures that move traffic over the high-speed rail. All that's being accounted for as we move forward in these schedules.
How's your level of confidence on completion?
Tough, sir.
One more time?
It is tough, sir. I think, here.
Okay.
This is the best way to paraphrase it. This is basically go back to slide 4. Go back to slide 4. Slide 4 tells you the story. Okay. This is it. Okay. July 13th to January 20th, right? You've executed about $2.3 billion. Okay? Now, as I've indicated before, that there's approximately $1 billion on top of that 4. Okay? So that means that we have about 2.5, give or take, right, to get done in a little bit over 30 months. It is, as they say in the Navy, Battle stations, all hands to the deck. Okay? If this is achieved, right, this will be a monumental achievement with regards to the industry of construction. Okay? And we are working tough to make this. And by the way, too, I'm not conceding the game yet either. I take this as being halftime. Okay? And no good coach ever, no matter what the score is at halftime, there's a lot of game yet to play. I'm confident that we can get there. We will get close.
All right, Joe, thank you. Any questions for Joe? Joe, thank you. Thanks for the updates and the reports also. We appreciate those.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Kelly, have you got anything for us today? All right. Chairman Mendonca? All right, that concludes the meeting for today. The board meeting will begin at 10 o'clock. Thank you all for attending. Meeting's adjourned.